You started? We have Marvell. Okay, perfect. Our pledge of allegiance. Okay, so I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's call this meeting to order for the employee environment side. It would begin with the roll call, please.
Caleb Newfield,
Here.
Tyler Kamalani,
Here.
Alfredo Molina,
Here.
Joseph Quinto,
Here.
Marvell French.
Here.
Great, approval of the minutes. Let's see, are there any questions, comments, concerns with the minutes from the January 2026 meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, Marvell.
Okay, do I have can I do a roll call vote, please? Or do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, have a roll call vote, please.
Caleb Newfield,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Joseph Quinto,
Sorry, aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
Great, with that, the motion passes. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
Motion to approve, Marvell.
Second it.
Second, great. Can I get a roll call, please?
Caleb Newfield,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Joseph Quinto,
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
Great, that the motion passes. There are no time scheduled hearings or matters today. Are there any items that need to be pulled from the consent calendar, or do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as written for anything the is? Is it a motion to approve the consent items? Yes. Motion to approve.
Approve the consent calendar, Marvell.
Do we have a motion? Marvell, is that a second? I get a second?
She said.
Oh, she did? Okay, cool. Can I get a roll call, please?
Caleb Newfield,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Joseph Quinto,
Aye.
Marvell French.
I sent you a text.
You sent me a text.
Marvell French.
Aye.
With that, the motion passes. There are no staff initiated items. I don't see any board initiated items. There are no items under general discussion. There are no information only items. Are there any proposed agenda items for the next meeting? Hearing none, we can move on to the next item. Are there any unscheduled oral communications?
I've got something for scheduled oral communications. I just wanted to say today actually marks like my 6th month being a part of the board. And I've enjoyed my time here. I've learned a lot. I've kind of been, just trying to learn. I'm used to the meetings, but having 3 going at the same time has been, a little different to learn. However, I've also noticed that there were some things that I've observed that I've actually had some concerns with. And with that, one of the things that was most concerning to me is the ongoing litigation involving the city of Fresno. And, I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that during this ongoing litigation, I've noticed that Ruth F. Quinto has had to recuse herself on multiple occasions on the board's most significant and sensitive matters. It is also my belief that the board should have a chair who can fully and impartially preside over all matters before us, particularly those of substantial legal and financial consequence. My comments are not personal in any nature, but rather rooted in what I believe to be the best interest and integrity and effective governance of this board. And with that said, I'd like to motion to remove Chair Ruth F. Quinto and elect a new chair.
Board Member Molina, I'm sort of the Brown Act cop, and as you notice, there's a lot of Brown Act material on this agenda. That is not a, I hate to say it, but it's not a matter for unscheduled or communications. And also you're asking for a board motion. Instead, that could be a proposed agenda item for the next board meeting.
Well, one of the reasons that I brought it up is during the last sit-in, and it wasn't anything to do with our side of the board. I think there was some communication happening on the fire and police side. And it was mentioned that the chairs serve at the pleasure of the board. And is that still?
It is quite right that the chair serves at the pleasure of the board. But remember, we're stuck with Brown Act rules. Things have to be on the agenda and only in limited circumstances can you consider something that's not on the agenda. And that's in some of the materials that we've attached to Laura's presentation later on the joint board agenda. But a motion to remove the chair is an action item. It's not presently on the agenda. We can easily
session.
Pardon me?
Wouldn't be a joint session, I'd write it would just.
No,
has to do with-
and you're exactly, all I'm saying is on the joint agenda is Laura's presentation on the Brown Act, including Brown Act memos. And one of the memos of which concerns this kind of issue. All I'm just saying is that as Laura's going to briefly allude later today to some Brown Act topics and very likely go over Brown Act training issues. One of the key elements of the Brown Act is that the boards can only consider and take action on things that are on the agenda. The item you're raising is not on the agenda. It can be added to the
Would it be
agenda.
proper to move it to the next month's meeting? Like
Exactly. It can be an agenda item included on the agenda for the meeting of the employees board on March 11th.
All right, if that's the case, then
And you can make that request, and I assume you're making that request.
yes, I'd like to put that on for the next board meeting.
All right, we'll mark that down. Are there any other unscheduled oral communications?
The only thing I wanted to ask, and I'm not sure where this would go, but if it's in the employees board or with the joint board, but I wanted to have someone review the payment that goes out to the trustees that are private, like myself and Lynn. I've been on the board for going on 26 years and we've never adjusted any amount. And now we're actually down to a lesser amount because we're only having one meeting a month. So I wanted to add that to an agenda, and I'm not sure if it's the joint or this one. Russ, can you help me on that?
Sure. So if I understood that correctly, as the board members may know, the outside board member, one in each board, get a minimal stipend for attending board meetings. Spend $100 a month for over 26 years.
A meeting, right? $100 a meeting or a month?
I'm sorry, a meeting, quite right. Thank you for that correction. $100 a meeting. So board member French is asking that to be put on the agenda. And I forget if we have a formal board policy on that. We may. But that could certainly be an item to be added to the agenda. And perhaps it could be on the joint agenda since it concerns both boards.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's the
wondering.
amount. Concerns both boards. That's again, a matter for for each board to determine. But you easily could add it to the joint agenda, or you could do the same thing and add it to each board separately since it concerns the board member on each board. So it's really your pleasure, but I think you could also do it on the joint board agenda.
Yeah, the joint agenda would be fine, I think.
Cool. I think you bring that back up during the joint meeting and we'll add that for next meeting then.
Yeah, proposed agenda items for next board meeting.
We'll bring it up to put on the agenda for the next board meeting at the joint.
Good. Are there any other oral communications? Okay. Any public comment? I don't see any public comment. There are no employee personnel issues reports. With that, we can adjourn the meeting.
And with that, we'll convene the regular meeting of Fire and Police for February 11th. Patty, can I have a roll call?
Jonathan Lusk,
Here.
Chris Cooper,
Here.
Lynn Finnick, Lawrence French,
Here.
Robert Beckwith.
Here. So with Lynn being absent, we'll have a roll call vote. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of January 4th? Cooper, make that motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Abstain. I was absent. So 3 ayes and 1 abstain on the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda for February 11th? Cooper, make that motion. French will second. All in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. No time schedule hearing matters. We have a consent calendar for items. Is there anything to report, questions? Not, French will make a motion for the consent items. Second. All in favor? Aye. And that passes all 4 things, and that I believe Mr. Bollinger is on the line and someone in the audience. Sure. Well, since Rick's first on the consent calendar, Rick, congratulations. Promised me he was gonna be there. He did. Oh, I don't know. Aaron. Okay, well, moving on to your police officer, right?
I mean, your medical retirement's been approved. Thank you very much for your service for the city and the police department. Anything you'd like to say?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you this afternoon. Appreciate all that you do on the board. Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, and may you take more money out of the pension. Okay. Okay, moving to item B5, the disability hearing.
You now have on the agenda an informal hearing for the Fire and Police Board. The applicant is Michelle Ochoa. I assume Ms. Ochoa is here today.
Yes, sir.
So you could come up if you'd like to. Ms. Ochoa did have a choice between an informal hearing and a formal hearing. Formal hearing is a hearing before an outside hearing officer. An informal hearing is what's going to occur today. So in a formal hearing, it's more like a trial. There's witnesses, there's the admission of exhibits, there's a direct examination, cross-examination, oral argument, something that you've seen on TV. That's a formal hearing. That is not what we're going to have today. Today is an informal hearing. And as I might recall, the mechanics for both are set out in the joint board rules. Ms. Ochoa has selected an informal hearing as opposed to a formal hearing. What's an informal hearing? It comes before you. You have the medical evidence already in the form of documents, medical records, medical reports that have been made available to you. So in an informal hearing such as today, you should hear from Ms. Ochoa and hear her arguments. And if a member of the staff, Mr. Feller or someone else wishes to comment, then you consider those comments. Then in open session, you discuss it among yourselves and decide what your decision is going to be. Staff is recommending that it be denied, but that's a recommendation. You can agree with it, but you don't have to agree with it. As just some background comments that might be helpful, your focus is on the date of separation of Ms. Ochoa, which is May 2018. So that's the time period from which you have to decide 2 issues. As of May 18th, was Ms. Ochoa incapacitated, meaning was she unable to perform her duties as a Fresno police officer? If you decide yes, she was incapacitated after May 18th, then you have to decide a second question, namely, did her employment as a Fresno police officer contribute in a real and measurable way to her incapacity? Ms. Ochoa is raising 4 body parts: her neck, her left shoulder, her back, and her right eye. Remember, as to each body part, Ms. Ochoa bears the burden of persuasion. Another uncontested fact that you that might be relevant to you is that Ms. Ochoa had approximately 27 years of service as a Fresno police officer, a substantial period of time. In this case, unlike others, we will have the obligation to resolve disputes in the medical records. So, for example, with respect to Ms. Ochoa's neck, that dates from a work incident in September 2014. Her treating physician, Dr. Johnson, made certain assertions. Dr. Pompan made similar assertions concerning the absence of permanent work restrictions. On the other hand, John Labornia, another medical doctor, did provide work restrictions for Ms. Ochoa's neck. We're going to have to resolve that issue. And I'm going to make some general comments that perhaps will assist the board in deciding which medical report to emphasize in just a few moments. But I just want to remind you that you have that issue. Then, with respect to her left shoulder, that also was injured in the September and 2014. I hope I didn't say 2024 with respect to the neck. Both the neck and the left shoulder were injured in a altercation with a suspect in September 2024. She saw, I'm sorry, I did it again. Thank you, Laura. 2014, not 2024. She received medical care, was discharged as cured in January 2015. She was released to full duty again by her personal treating physician, Dr. Johnson, in July 2018. Again, we have Dr. Pompan saying no work restrictions were appropriate. On the other hand, you have Dr. Labornia saying the work restrictions for the left shoulder were appropriate. With respect to the back, there was really insufficient medical evidence. With respect to the right eye, the last condition, the issue that the board staff determined was that Ms. Ochoa had not provided any medical evidence on the right eye as far as service connection goes, and therefore withdrew that body part from consideration after coordination and notice to Ms. Ochoa. However, if the board decides to look at that condition, the right eye, there's again a conflict in medical testimony on incapacity between Dr. Kay, an eye specialist, and Dr. Johnson, her primary care physician. However, as to service connection, and this is the reason why staff came to the decision it did, Doctors Kay, Ozata, Stroom, Abbas Mehdi, Brandt, May, from their different medical perspectives, concluded that there is no evidence linking the September 2014, got to write that time, incident to her eye condition. So that's where we stand on the evidence. To make some general comments, because you're going to have to decide which medical reports you're going to decide are most persuasive, which ones you're going to give most weight to. And as general background factors, a medical report that is detailed includes a record review and an explanation of the issues that are relevant to us, namely incapacity and service connection, generally deserves better weight than a medical report that lacks a record review and lacks detailed explanations. A medical report that doesn't discuss imaging studies such as MRI findings is usually worth less weight than a medical report that does. A medical report that doesn't indicate an awareness of whether the applicant was working full duty at date of separation, or the applicant had any work restrictions provided to the applicant as of the date of separation, and whether the applicant was receiving any treatment as of the date of separation for that body part. That medical report is usually worth less weight than one that does evaluate those three factors. And a medical report that doesn't address prior medical reports, particularly if those medical reports come out in the opposite direction on incapacity or service connection, are usually not worth the same amount of weight as a medical report does. And usually a medical report by a specialist on an issue within a body part or condition within the scope of expertise of that specialist is usually worth more than a medical report on the same body part or condition by a generalist or a primary care physician. So those are general comments that hopefully will assist you in weighing the medical reports that come before you. But now you may wish to hear oral argument from Ms. Ochoa as to her application.
Okay. Ms. Ochoa, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot. Let me start from the beginning. On September 23rd, 2014, I was working patrol, responded to code 3-2 a call, mental son trying to kill his mom. The door was supposed to be open. I used my shoulder to try to get the door open. Eventually did go open. That's probably where I injured it. Now we're fighting with the mentally ill individual with the knife. He's taken into custody after a pretty violent altercation. Everything's clean up. He goes to the hospital. That night, after obviously the adrenaline wears off, I have extreme pain in my left shoulder, excruciating, and I felt like I was in a car wreck. I notify my supervisor the next morning. I go to Concentra, and there it starts the paperwork. So at that time, nor did I ever think or know that I had an issue with my eye. Multiple appointments with doctors and physical training relieved me of some pain in my neck. I'm off duty initially because I'm on tramadol or something. It's about 4 months, I believe, and I go back to work. That's what all of us do. We're not trying to stay out injured. I go back to work. I'm in patrol, and right about maybe January, I believe, 2015, I'm backing up in an alley in the west side. I'm looking over my right shoulder trying to go in an alleyway, and I go completely black. Turn back around, I could see. I didn't understand what just happened, but I knew that it wasn't good. About February 2015, I go see Ozeta, Dr. Ozeta with workers' comp. And that's the first time I make reference to it because now I had received a training or physical therapy. So now I can move my neck. And that's ultimately why I was able to look behind my right side and then realize that there's this problem. I never had it before. Everything derived from that incident in 2014. It gets documented at the same time, other injuries, the shoulder, the back. I'm in PT from 2011, well, actually most of my career. I was a trainer, I did physical therapy or training, arrest control. So I have issues. I mean, we're all injured, but we choose to work through them. That's just how it is. And you try to limit to not emphasize your injury because now you're not going to be able to go to other, units. So I was still getting physical therapy and I was still working. Right about 2017, I get a phone call from Risico. It was probably TriStar, but I don't know what it was back then. And the gal is with my new adjuster and says, do you still see the black dots when you turn right? I said, oh yeah. Not knowing the significance or the severity, I said, yeah, but I'm getting through it. At that time, I went from the training bureau. Now I'm in Magic. I'm in undercover capacity. I'm not wearing a uniform, very tactical gear, and I'm administrative for the most part. You're typing and your phone calls and, surveillance. So February 2017, Briscoe says, I need you to go see Wallace Yang at CRMC so we can document it or release you, I believe is what her words were. I said, that's fine. Again, I didn't know the severity. As soon as I tell him the story of when it started, now, mind you, this is 2017. This happened in 2014. 2 years in between that, I'm getting physical therapy to lessen the strain in my neck when this is happening. When I tell him the story, he immediately grabs my neck as though I'm going to faint. And he asked me a variety of questions. You know, could it be your cholesterol? Could it be, you know, you? Is it possible that this is not work related? And I said, well, we didn't do any tests, but this happened after this incident. It hadn't happened before. So he elected to send me through, and you'll see, you have the medical records, MRIs, CT scans. So he tells me on 2017, February, no driving. So for a full year, I'm not driving, period. They took they didn't take my personal car, my work car away. I had to leave it at the hospital and my partners had to come get my car. So for a full year, I complied, still going through therapy and doing what he's asking, which at this point he's concerned for my health, which I completely agree with. I didn't know the severity. I can't stress that enough because not Ozeta, any of the doctors I saw never once said, well, this could be something like your vertebrae, your arteries in your neck or something else. So they went through that course to determine there wasn't anything else. It wasn't until 2018 when I went to Dr. K, the ophthalmologist. And the first round of tests were just different variety of tests. It was his suggestion to get approval for an angiogram. So they shot the dye in my arm, and he says he found on 2/20 of 2018, he goes, you have an old blood clot. And I said, what does that mean? He shows me behind my right eye is a blood clot. He goes, so this is 4 years. 2014 is the incident. 4 years he does the angiogram, and he's like, okay, this is probably what it was. But it's an old blood clot. And I remember asking him, doctor, is this something that can blind me? Permanent? Can I get a stroke? Can I die? And he couldn't say with 100%. Of course, I wanted some reassurance to continue in what I was doing. He goes, I can't. He goes, just don't back up anymore. That was his answer to me. I'm like, he's naive. He doesn't understand. But I'm like, that's impossible. So with respect to that medical record that he documented, he documents a blood clot, old blood clot, that he could not tell me that it wouldn't get worse or something else with another, head contusion, which you're going to get them all the time. You're always fighting. So and then I had multiple car accidents. So after hearing that, in May 5th, 2018, May 9th, I go back to Dr. Johnson. Now he has Dr. K's report. And I don't understand. So this is the part that I don't understand. So I hope you guys can clarify. In my hand, I have multiple forms, and it says activity restrictions, work status, restricted duty as of 5/9/2018. Must not work patrol or undercover. May resume driving personal automobile, but not work vehicle. Permanent and stationary. So I have multiple reports that state the same, not to return to duty. And then even documents specifically, may he return to full status. Let me find it for a second.
I don't want to cut you short, but you've exceeded, and I was just wondering if we could wrap it up and because you're very compelling already.
What's that?
You're very compelling already,
Okay,
but we're running short on time, so
last one.
and I'm not going to cut you off, so please.
No, I appreciate it.
Pass out.
I'm actually winding down. So in my hot little hand.
Yeah, there's no time limit.
Okay, then I apologize for that.
Okay, that's okay.
Continue, please.
So in this report, primary treating physician's permanent station report, PR4, is the permanent disability directly caused by an injury or illness arising of and in the scope of employment, and it's checkmark yes. Number one. Number two, is the permanent disability caused in whole or in part by other factors besides this industrial injury or illness? No. I don't know what more I need. At that day and time, I then fall, because now I'm being told you can't work. You're not getting paid. You can't be a cop. On this day, I get it from Risico. Now I understand these are two different things, but that's where I was at. I then called Todd Frazier, who was our rep. Ultimately, I speak to Dave Newton, who used to be on your committee. I'm like, I need some help. What's going on? He goes, well, Michelle, you can't work anymore. We may try to find you alternative job, like a bus driver or something. As a matter of fact, I couldn't even do that because that was one of the restrictions. So now I seek advice from my elders that would know. Now that I know I have a DNS and I've met my max, I didn't know what else to do. If a doctor, an ophthalmologist is saying, I can't tell you that you're not going to be paralyzed or a stroke or blindness, it wasn't worth it to me. But I thought this was enough to state my case. I was 50. I didn't even get to go to drop. That's what pisses me off the most. I had more years in me. I was in a plush job. I didn't choose this. Did not choose this. So with that, I have the documentation that I don't understand where we're at, but I have Dr. Johnson talking about the right eye. And this was derived from work. And Dr. K, albeit he's the only one that found it, and I thank him for that, but he was the worst physician that I ever dealt with. And as a matter of fact, I had to search out Stephanie Brogdon, who was our RN back then for Risico, to say what an idiot this guy was. Because I was trying to ask him, doctor, what if this? What? And he goes, I can't tell you that. Just don't back up. Don't back your patrol car up. Like that's ridiculous. So I want to state those are the facts. I don't know what I did wrong here. I filed my retirement as my elders suggested I should, and here I am today. So is there anything else? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I do want to say this. Part of this report, I want you guys to look at Lavorgnier and Scott Graham's, as well as Dr. Johnson, who was treating me, and what he's documented. I'm not sure if there's a wrong document or wrong paperwork, but this is what I have for my injury. And let me just state, as far as my physical injuries, I've been a cop 27 years. I'm injured. I get up, I can barely move. I have to do yoga. So we're all injured. What my mistake was, and nobody tells you how to do it. When I'm going to these interviews with Graham and Pompan and whoever, I was just being honest. I had an injury to my eyeball. And that wasn't going away. And it's still, I have to seek my own eye treatment to this day to make sure I don't go blind. So I should have been more open and said, yeah, I'm injured. But again, I didn't know that I was going to be at this point. I wanted to continue working. And on the 8th of May, that all came to an end. And it wasn't my decision. It was somebody else's. So here I am trying to plead with you guys to have, some latitude, some flexibility, because obviously I was given wrong advice, and I don't know. To this day, I still don't know what I should have done different. So, with that, I think that's all I can tell you.
Thank you.
So now it's whether staff wants to make any comments, they may or may not. Nothing that wasn't said already. The intro and then the reports.
I've worked with Michelle. I've watched her at the training facility and everything else. I see her point and I understand where she's coming from. What she's been, we've all been there, like she said, we don't want to stay out late. We want to come back even though we're hurt. So I agree with her.
Can I ask a question about the eye injury? Is that appropriate? Russ, this is the question you.
Ask Ms. Ochoa or ask.
Yes, Ms. Ochoa. We have some documentation that it sounded like a 2-year period to provide information back to staff at retirement office regarding disposition or medical records. And it seems like there's a lot of time that elapsed in that period of time. Are you able to speak to that?
No, because I think I wasn't aware. I thought I still had the ability. Mind you, I went back to work in an administrative capacity. And I was in email communication with the ladies here. I believe my only argument is I didn't realize it would be that they would remove it, that they withdrew my eye injury. I believed I still had the ability once I filed for medical. So I was a full-time employee with the city. I did cannabis backgrounds. I didn't want to submit my disability while I was still working. I was trying to pay for my health insurance, which is astronomical. So I waited and I thought I still had the ability. So that's my misunderstanding. I didn't know they had the ability to pull that or withdraw that. So that's my answer. I did not know. I thought I still had the right to fight my case.
Staff like to address that point?
Well, I would just say that noticing does go out. And we were careful in the noticing. And unfortunately, if a member doesn't understand, right, we would hope that there would be communication there. And in this case, there was not. And we do understand that Ms. Ochoa was working for the city on the ERS side and asked to stop her application processing and then resumed again when it would have seemed that there was more evidence. So there was a period where the application was suspended. So we were in communication. And she's right, emails, we did email her back and forth, but notices would have gone out as to withdrawing, and they're in your packet of information. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see them. But because there are timeframes on which things need to be received and that kind of stuff. 24 months, you're right, the 24-month period there. And unfortunately, we didn't get the evidence. So that's how that for her condition, whatever the conditions was removed.
Oh, so in the absence of any or there's no other presentation before you, you certainly can ask questions, additional questions of Ms. Ochoa or staff. If there are none, then there would be time for you to talk about how you want to resolve Ms. Ochoa's application. If you want to move to grant it or move to deny it.
Well, I'm just gonna, so one of the frustrations I have is that there's a lot of information to go through. And, unfortunately, we get this information 5 days before this meeting and we're all working full-time jobs with a lot to do. So it's a lot to go over. So my request would be, I would personally like to look this over further before making a decision. I don't know if that's an option.
It is an option.
I agree with Chris. Michelle had a long, very productive career with the Fresno Police Department. And I just don't feel like I would be doing her any service making a decision without looking at this a little more thoroughly after hearing her presentation.
Again, that would require a motion by the board.
You want to make that?
Well, I'll make the motion.
I'll speak to kind of how I feel after the, very compelling. I believe her. And if it was a flip of a coin, like, let's just send it out or think about it one more time, that I would be rooting for her. So in the leniency of like the weighing of the evidence, if you're more comfortable because you really want to make sure, but I'm leaning towards like granting it because there's just as many opinions that agree with her than don't agree with her. So, I'd be in favor of granting.
Any comments on that?
Just like you said, very productive career. She was a go-getter. We worked with her the whole 9 yards. And I don't, especially her talking right now and giving us the facts of her case, I don't see that she's lying to us. And I believe that her injuries were related to the work.
I'll withdraw my motion and instead make a motion to grant the service connected disability.
Cooper will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And staff, is there an issue on effective date?
Oh, okay, yes, so generally speaking, when an application is granted, then, and they file before it separates the employment, we can go back pre-open tax years. So the effective date, looking back to the 3 open tax years, that's how we would set it as. Now, Ms. Ochoa worked for the city of Fresno, so we would be able to go back to her last, for the day when she separated city employment, which would be January 2025. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
So, Michelle?
Yes.
You unanimously, we approve your.
We,
I'm sorry.
I would be a nay.
Nay? Okay. I'm sorry for not calling for the vote. That's okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. So 3-1. Your disability's been approved.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys' patience.
Thank you.
So again, effective date of January 2025.
Yeah, her date after she left city employment. Okay.
Thank you for your service. And once again, enjoy your retirement best you can.
Well,
Thank you. Perfect. Moving to staff initiated items, there are none. No board initiated items, no general discussion items, the information only items, the status on Chair Lusk's appeal hearing.
And that's for you to provide to us, Chair Lust.
Okay.
We don't want to know any details.
No details, but the update is that an arbitrator has been selected. We're in the discovery process now. We're waiting for a date for the hearing.
So there's no date as of yet.
No date as of yet, and that will state also for the record that I believe the city of Fresno has violated my rights and
But
I'm
we don't want to go.
appealing my case.
We don't want to talk about it at all. Just the
Okay,
mere background.
okay. The background is that
No news.
A date has not.
a date has not been set. I'll leave it at that. Are there any proposed agenda items for the next board meeting? Hearing none. Any unscheduled oral communications?
I do, if we have the meeting for March 11th, at this time, I don't think I'll be able to attend that one. I won't know for sure for the next couple of weeks, but I possibly could not attend the call.
Okay. Good. Any other? Hearing none. Any members of the public wishing to comment? Hearing none, there are no employee personnel issues, so we are adjourned. We'll convene the Seafers Realty Holding Corporation Board of Directors for February 11th. Patty, can I get a roll call?
Jonathan,
Here.
Caleb Newfield,
Here.
Lawrence French,
Here.
Tyler Kamalani, Chris Cooper,
Here.
Lynn Bennick, Robert Beckwith,
Here.
Alfredo Molina,
Here.
Lisa Pinto,
Here.
and Marvell French.
Here.
Can you replay Tyler's?
Oh, Tyler Kamalani.
Here. Can I approve a motion to, or can I consider a motion to approve the minutes of January 14, 2026?
The motion.
Caleb first. Cooper second. Patty, roll call, please.
Jonathan Lusk,
Aye.
Caleb Newfield,
Aye.
Lawrence French,
Abstain.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Chris Cooper,
Aye.
Robert Beckwith,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Lisa Pinto,
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
You, can I entertain a motion to approve the agenda for February 11th?
We'll make that motion.
Actual second. Patty, roll call, please.
Jonathan Lusk,
Aye.
Caleb Newfield,
Aye.
Lawrence French,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Chris Cooper,
Aye.
Robert Beckwith,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Lisa Pinto,
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
You. On the contained items, there are no consent items, and we do have closed session.
We're now going into closed session with respect to item B1 on the agenda. And just to remind everyone, under the Brown Act, the conference concerning real property, the topics that can be considered in closed session are very limited to pricing and terms of payment. So the board of directors is now going into closed session to discuss in terms of payment. So again, the boards may want an update in open session as to what has transpired since the last meeting that the Realty Holding Company Board of Directors had on this issue. The last meeting, as I understand it, subject to everybody's correction, because we're handicapped by not having our real estate counsel here. We were negotiating a lease extension and also, in addition, negotiating an assignment of the lease to this new entity. Now, as I understand it, that format has been altered, subject to correction by parties who may be more informed. That instead of our assigning the lease, it's the new.
Mr. President, get back in open session. Stop going. Yes, I'll go to the next.
I thought we were in open session the whole time. I repeat myself. Someone more knowledgeable repeat. As I understand it, the underlying nature of the legal transaction has been altered. That may or may not make a difference as to the business fundamentals. But when we were last here, what we were faced with was extending the lease with the current tenant and at the same time considering our relationship and acceptance of an assignment of the current lease or the lease as extended to a new tenant. Now, as I understand it, subject to correction, that is no longer what is planned. Instead, as I understand it, Andy, that would have been the new tenant, has now purchased ownership of the current tenant. It may or may not affect the business fundamentals, but it certainly affects the legal relationships and the legal protections that we would be interested vis-a-vis that new development. Again, unfortunately, our real estate counsel, who is more up on irrelevant real estate law aspects, and certainly I am, and has actually been engaged in discussions with the entities on the other side of this proposed deal, is not available today.
Russ, with that there, you said we can't do anything. Can we just?
No, you can do what you want.
But we can't do anything because we haven't had, the attorney is out sick, correct? And we hasn't been
I
communication.
mean, that's my recommendation to you.
Can we just do your thing and move on? This is just
You might want to
thing over and over.
Might want to hear anyone else who's now in open session.
Yeah. So are we on agenda item C1?
Yes, and I apologize. The report of closed session is the board took no reportable action. Now we're in item C1.
All right, so on item C1, discussion and action regarding 2020 Fresno Street lease. Want to take it somewhere, Rob? Just to kind of bring us all together.
Yes, the financial information was provided. The request for information was fully satisfied. The financial information from Blue Cloud Pediatric Surgery Centers LLC was not enough to give us good comfort. So we actually requested a guarantee from the Pediatric Surgery Center when they take this lease. Short version is it's mostly ready. They actually emailed last night saying that they were ready to agree to that. So it's literally down to last details. If you want us to pursue something with potentially extending it to 15 or offer that to them, I'm fairly sure that they're going to want to wrap this up as quickly as possible. Maybe we can revisit that after we get.
That was my intention.
Okay, but it's as far as I understand, it's very much ready to go. And Brady just emailed me. Just a second.
They're getting years. We're getting the space back, right?
Okay, he's got a proposed draft of the consent and guarantee, and if acceptable, we'll send over to Jenna for process approval and execution.
Mr. President, would it make sense based on what Rob just mentioned for the board of directors to delegate it to the chair? If in a sense, we're down to the last wire, and even though it's a new legal arrangement, but and subject to Brady's approval and recommendation to execute it, which apparently he's just emailed about, but that the board of directors authorize the chair to execute the agreement subject to the recommendation of your real estate counsel. Is that going too far?
Sound good to me.
Do you need a motion or just direction?
No, this would be a motion. It's a
Please.
big-
I'll make a motion that Jonathan represents.
Accept recommendation of the real estate council, and if so, that Jonathan has delegated the authority to sign for.
Cooper makes that motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? Patty, roll call, please.
Jonathan Lusk,
Aye.
Caleb Newfeld,
Aye.
Lawrence French,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Chris Cooper,
Aye.
Rob Beckwith,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Jessica Pinto,
No.
and Marvell French.
Aye.
Okay. That closes agenda item C1. Are there any unscheduled oral communication? Hearing none. There are no information only items. Any member of the public wishing to comment? Hearing none. We are adjourned. We're the holding, and we will convene the regular joint meeting of the retirement boards for February 11, 2026. Patty, can I have a roll call?
Caleb Newfeld.
Here.
Tyler Kamalani,
Here.
Alfredo Molina,
Here.
Jessica Pinto,
Go back to everybody.
Here.
Marvell French. Marvell French.
He's in the.
Aye. You say Marvell or?
Yes, for roll call,
Aye, I'm here.
Jonathan Lusk,
Aye. Here.
Lynn Bibbick, Lawrence,
Here.
Robert Beckwith.
Here. You. Okay. Fire and police, can I entertain a motion for the minutes of January 14th, 2020?
Make a motion.
Not here.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes have been approved.
One abstention.
Sorry,
That's okay.
one abstention. Did that again. Can I entertain a motion to approve today's agenda for February?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
3 ayes and 1 absent. So the approved agenda has been approved. There are no time scheduled hearings and matters. We have 3 items on the consent calendar. Anything you hold, if not, can I entertain a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second. To approve consent. Okay. Aye. With my vote, the motion passes 3 with 1 absent.
Let's have the employees chiming in as well.
Yes.
Boy, I'm really far off.
Yeah, all right. So on the employee side, so I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 14th.
I'll make the motion, Marvell.
I second it.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Caleb Newfeld,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Jessica Pinto,
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
Right. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Make that motion.
A second? Second. Can I get a roll call, please?
Caleb Newfeld,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfredo Molina,
Aye.
Jessica Pinto,
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
You got it. All right, with that, the motion passes. I think we're caught up. You went over time, family arrangement matters, there's none.
Right.
Consent calendar approved. Oh, yep. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Roll call, please.
Caleb Newfield,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfredo Malina,
Aye.
Lisa Pinto,
Aye.
Isabel French.
Aye.
So do you want?
Yeah, and with that, it passes unanimously.
It does pass, yeah, sorry.
It's all right, we're doing it together.
All right, so
So moving to staff initiated items, B1, closed session pursuant to government substance code to purchase of particular specific retirement fund investments. Patty, please
And
move.
it's item B1 on the agenda.
Correct. Moving us into closed session, correct?
Closed session.
The report out of closed session is that the board's approved an investment of up to $50 million in the Brookfield Real Estate Solutions Fund 2. The vote by the Fire and Police Board was unanimous in favor with votes, 4 votes from all members presently attending. And on the employee system, all 5 board members voted in favor of the investment in the fund. In both cases, the votes were subject to successful completion of operational due diligence and a successful outcome of legal review. In addition, the staff noted or informed the boards pursuant to the board's investment policy that an additional investment of $30 million is being made into the Kane Anderson Real Estate Fund 7. And I'm saying that's an investment of up to $30 million. And again, that is staff action pursuant to board policy. And this is notification to the boards of that additional investment. That constitutes the report out of closed session.
Thank you. Okay, moving to B2, staff initiated items, total fund review.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Chair. So going to talk about the fourth quarter of 2025, our second fiscal year quarter. Going to sound very similar to the last couple months. Generally positive results. Markets were up a couple percent. That's great for us. Domestic and international equities were both up a few percent as well. No surprise, theme we've seen all year, international equity has outperformed domestic equity quite significantly. Some of that is due to the dollar weakening, but also a lot of it due to a lot of the policy changes that have come out of Washington that have forced investors to rotate into international equity as better opportunities may present themselves. One thing that has been interesting is corporate earnings continue to remain resilient. So the consumer is still strong, which is quite interesting because last month we talked about the K-shaped recovery where the top 10 or 20% are doing or expected to do quite well, and the bottom, whatever percent, are going to struggle. And that I think is playing out to some degree. You can see it in some of the economic data that the Fed releases, and then just the general news and the various websites and economic information that we consume. The mega cap and mag 7 rotation, I think, has started to some degree. So that, we have been enormous beneficiaries of that over the last few years, where the mag 7 and tech names have done amazingly well and helped prop up the market and really driven most of the gains. That is starting to change because their valuations are now starting to get so stretched. The AI hype is starting to require some actual results instead of just hype. So it'll be quite interesting to see how that plays out over the course of this calendar year, even though we're only about 6-7 weeks into it. And the dollar continued to weaken a little bit. It did have some periods throughout the quarter where it strengthened, but for the most part, it did weaken, and it ended the year significantly down. Inflation still relatively unchanged and flat. It's kind of stuck around 3-ish%. It'll be quite interesting to see now that the president has nominated a new Fed chair who will theoretically be approved and start the job in a couple months. See how that changes the dynamics. Because right now, I think it's fair to assume that given everything that the current Fed has weathered over the last several years, they have done a fairly good job keeping the economy from imploding on itself. GDP has actually come in very strong compared to the last few years, so that's great. The economy is still growing. We can debate whether or not it will persist, but at least the data that is available shows that it's quite resilient and improving. And then lastly, the Fed made one last policy cut of 25 basis points for a total of 75 for the year. So from what I've heard from my conversations with our bond managers recently, they expect a couple more cuts next year, probably in the 25 basis point variety, maybe another 50 to 75 total. So getting us down near that presumed neutral rate of 3 to 3.5%. If you remember a couple of years ago, we were almost 6% at the Fed funds rate. So it's come down dramatically. That's really because the economy has been so strong. Any questions on the quarter? So for board members, every December and June, I like to add a little bit more information based on the fiscal year or calendar year. So I like to do a calendar year highlight. The total fund for the calendar year, phenomenal, of about 14% net. So that means after all fees and expenses have been paid, we're up over 14% or nearly 14%, which, as you hopefully all know, truly exceeds our assumed rate of just under 7 at 6 3/4. Equities were up a lot. International equity, as I just mentioned, up over 30%. Domestic equity still up quite a bit, about 19%. Real estate, finally, as we just talked about, is hopefully starting to turn the corner. A lot of our managers and a lot of their peers took their lumps the last few years, aggressively marked positions down. Some don't want to, but they'll face the music eventually. But they at least had a positive return instead of a negative return. So that is hopefully a telltale sign that the market is starting to churn, transactions are starting to improve, and especially now as the interest rate environment starts to moderate, things will get better. The year had a lot of ups and downs. It started off with a bang with Liberation Day, quickly pulled back, and then stocks rebounded. More tariffs were applied, stocks pulled back, tariffs were pulled back, and it was just kind of a yo-yo effect where it was a lot of stops and starts, and nobody really could figure out what to do. So talking to real estate managers, talking to infrastructure managers, it's hard for them, and even our equity managers, it's hard for companies to truly put in forecasts because they just don't know on an hour by hour, day by day, month by month basis what is going to happen, social media or somewhere else. So it really causes some problems. But overall, again, the economy has just been extremely resilient, and assuming we can get through this the way we have, the economy should continue chugging along exactly as it has been. However, crypto, no surprise, they were finally due for a pullback, and it happened, and it's continued to slide over the last 7-8 weeks. Not surprising, they had a tremendous run up, peaking at just over 120,000 or so, I think, Now they're down to about 65. So, the charts that I show you in a couple slides, the volatility is probably the most absurd and unreal thing that you can witness, because most people typically think stock volatility is pretty bad at 15 to 16% on an annualized basis, whereas crypto, at least for Bitcoin, is triple that, maybe quadruple that. So anyways, on the sector front, tech, no surprise, and communication services, which is basically part of the Mag 7 encompasses, all up very, very strong, over 20%. Consumer staples, kind of surprising, was the only sector that actually decreased throughout the year. So, which is, again, one of those potential canary in the coal mine signs that the economy is not as strong as we would like it to be, because if people can't afford their staples, which is quite different than discretionary, that means people are making trade-offs on what to actually buy to make it to the next day, the next week, and so on. Commodities were kind of okay. However, natural gas declined almost 30%. So, however, for January, I can tell you that natural gas was up about 30%. So, mainly due to the East Coast having a horrific storm a few weeks ago that has paralyzed parts of that geography. The dollar down about 10% on the year, and anywhere from 5 to 10% against most of its peers. But gold was up about 60%. Now, the debate can be had, which is not going to be today, that it's due to the dollar weakness, because we have so many other agenda items that everybody wants to just perk up when I hear gold. Gold had a great year. So, but I do not believe we have any physical investment or any type of investment in gold. That is commodity, and commodity risk is different than other risks. So that was my recap of the market for the year. For inflation, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, still roughly flat. I think it started the year around 3% and at the end of the year about 7%, so not much change. No idea if or when it will get down. It will take either a gigantic recession or some other outlier event to really depress demand and kill inflation once and for all. The good news is we don't need another Volcker like in the 70s and 80s to bump interest rates up to the mid to high teens to take care of it. And that was my commentary on the calendar year. Are there any questions? Okay. So didn't really have anything else. We finished the year up on a high note, at least for AUM. We continue to kind of straddle that depending on what the equity markets do every year. But we're excited about seeing the fund continue to grow. And we continue to, the three of us continue discussing how to reallocate and restructure portfolio as and when needed to not only reduce volatility, but to give us better options to make smarter investments in. We had about $33 million in capital calls in December, which is great. We rebalanced another $55 million out of the BlackRock International Equity Fund. They were significantly overweight, and so we felt it was the easiest and fastest way to bring that down. We actually rebalanced it into cash because our cash position got down to almost nothing. So, and that was not something that I really wanted to go through if we had a capital call at the last minute and we didn't have the cash in. So we did that. And the search activity, as I mentioned earlier, we have been quite busy so far. We continue to be busy and we'll stay busy for the next several months. We have the three of us are going on a trip over to Asia in about 5 weeks, actually the day after the next board meeting. So we have some very interesting managers that we're excited about. We're going to talk to and hopefully come back with recommendations shortly thereafter. And that's it. Any questions?
Why didn't we invest in gold?
For those of you new to the board, one of my first proposals on the board was to buy gold 10 years ago. And I was outvoted 9-1. And I've been waiting for gold to explode, and now it has. And that's why I get excited when he says gold. So anyway, thank you, Chad. Moving to discuss and approve our artificial intelligence AI meeting and document file.
Okay. This is the end of the Chad show for today. With that said, I have had several conversations and demonstrations. We're currently in a trial period right now with this platform called Clay. They're a web-based, cloud-based AI platform that does meeting transcription, document management, and workflow agency. Because right now, as you can appreciate, probably understand, I spend most of my days either reading news, or living in Excel. And while Excel is useful and helpful, it's not the end all be all that it's designed for. So the test that we've run is basically when we were on our trip last week, we had a few hiccups, unfortunately, that got in the way. We weren't able to use it. But since we've returned, we have used it several times for meetings, and it's worked exactly as expected. It's created the summaries. It's captured 100% of the conversation instead of, most of these meetings that the three of us attend, we're lucky if we capture 20% of the conversation. We've captured the high level. It's impossible to retain or capture everything. And this is a tool to help us. With his impending retirement in a few months, the investment team is vitally and critically understaffed, and bandwidth is exceptionally low. So this would be a tool to help me temporarily until hopefully.
Well, not just temporarily, but going forward.
Until a new person is hired. But we feel like this would be a game changer and a fantastic tool to help us. It can be utilized across teams, investments, finance, and share documents. We can see documents. We can see where things stand, because right now, as I said, keeping track of everything in Excel is a laborious and messy process. And for the fee that they're charging is exceptionally reasonable in our mind compared to some of the other platforms that we currently use. And we would like to move from the trial to a 1-year subscription.
So you've heard me talk about qualms about employing AI. Most of those qualms were because it's very hard to limit an AI box or an AI tool in staying in its lane. And it starts pulling in some of the confidential documents, it starts pulling in some of the things that it's just not supposed to see. Given the fact that we've got HIPAA level health information on massive amounts of people, to serious concern. What satisfied me with trying this using the actual trial is it's not based here. It's not got access to anything in our database or our network. We have to send documents. What Chad was talking about, the summaries, the note-taking abilities during live meetings, that's all housed at their location, not ours. So the security issue, it's only, I think the only problem that we have is with calendaring them. So we're working through that. But it seems to be we've got a good workaround. But again, the security issues that I've raised over the past few years seem to be well addressed by how this is handled. Again, it's not resident here, so it's not fishing around in our confidential documents. It's housed, and we're just accessing it through the web.
I appreciate that, Rob. Can actually ask about the security side of it. So we're 100% thinking alike there. Is it I'm assuming this is a closed AI, so to speak, so the information is protected. I get it, it's housed off-site, which is certainly beneficial.
They can't even share among customers. So it's literally our documents, our analysis, our uploads, and it only has access to that. We're the only ones that have access to those sessions and those notes.
And who owns the information?
Played. We can get it back if we terminate the relationship later, but that's it.
Okay, and there's measures in place that they can't do anything with that information?
There's guarantees, yes.
Yes, I guess that's a better way to put it. Then my second question is, as far as redundancy, do we have something in place if we're have a policy in place? Maybe we do, and I'm just naive to it. So we're not solely relying on the A. We have some type of we're going back and we're double checking this before we're making any.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We still do our ODD. We still do ODD. We still do actual due diligence on the investments. We're actually doing the work. This is just helping us collate, getting those notes so that we can go back and refresh our memory a little more easily. So yeah, the live meetings, it's beautiful, like Chad said. The few times that we've actually been able to use this right now, you go back and it's like, oh yeah. There's what we said exactly. Not Rob's scribbled notes and wait, what did Rob write from Rob? So it's very handy, very nice. But no, we're actually still doing the work.
And I probably cut you off because you're probably about to get there, but what is the subscription amount?
12 grand.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it.
So they asked for a minimum of 5 people. So right now we've identified 4, maybe a 5th. That would be $17,000 per year. It would just be under $15,000 if it was just the 4 at the start. So it's $200 per month per person plus $5,000 annually.
And how long did we trial it for? I'm sorry, you probably said it.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And it ends next Wednesday, a week from today.
Okay. And from your perspective, 2 weeks was long enough to make a determination that you're comfortable with this.
I think we're highly impressed with how it's worked out.
So I uploaded some documents, generic marketing decks from our managers that we met with recently, some of the memos that I've written that you guys have all seen over the last several months and years, and reviewed the summary output from the conversations, the real-time conversations I've had. And it marries all of that information, and you can basically, it opens up this universe of comparing and contrasting multiple managers at once, instead of me spending a week trying to dig through information and then summarize it and then hope it sounds coherent. So it does that in a matter of seconds.
We're used to you not being coherent.
I appreciate that.
My final comment, you had me sold. I appreciate the fact that, you're embracing technology like this, because I do think you are understaffed with the amount of what you're doing. So anything we can do to help that, making sure that we're being efficient to our members. I don't see a downside. I'll let my colleagues comment, but I'm prepared to support it.
Thank you. Yeah, we can see it being a tremendous time saver, especially not speeding up. Like I said, we're still doing the full process, but this helps. The limited amount of the free trial, we're really confident with it.
And will it be an easy transition? You said it would have 5 people, right? 5 minutes, and should one of you leave and we hire somebody else? That.
Oh, absolutely.
Notify them. Yeah.
It's a user platform or user access. CFER's can name whoever they want to do that access.
So you mentioned there's no concerns from a security standpoint. Did we review?
Oh, no, there's all sorts of concerns about the security standpoint.
Do we
but
it's SOC 2 report?
Yes.
Do we request their SOC 2 report?
They gave us access to it.
Okay.
And it was favorable, but it's, like I said, the primary concerns that we had was once you have an AI platform started,
and it just kind of floats out and
bingo, it starts ghosting things. It starts having hallucinations. Thank you. Yeah, hallucinations.
Hey, Caleb, for the cops and the firefighters in the room, what is that report?
SOC 2 report would be a CPA firm will attest saying that there's adequate controls in place from a security standpoint to ensure that customer data. Okay.
It's an international requirement for certain firms.
Learn something every day.
Absolutely. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's great. I think AI is fantastic. It makes our lives more efficient. And I think it can enhance the quality of the work that we do. And it's a great tool. So.
Fire police motion to support. I'll make the motion. I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
Can I get a motion on the employee side?
I'm okay.
Roll call, please.
Caleb Newfield.
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani.
Aye.
Alfredo Molina.
Aye.
Ruth Quinto.
Sorry, aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
Thank you. With that,
Thanks very much.
thank you. Okay. Right. Moving to B4, to review, discuss, and accept administrative updates to joint policy 21A.
So you've already seen the, sorry, my computer just jumped. The policy was before you several months ago. Yeah, these are updates to Joint Board Policy 2-1, continuing education due diligence. The initial January 2024 was to combine two separate policies. So things we already discussed. This was approved in March of 2024. That was combined continuing education and due diligence policy statements. It was discovered that the 2024 versions of the policy inadvertently removed. So this was a big old typo. The requirement for the employee board member to obtain authorization for release time. So that's now been added back in. You can see the changes, but that's per city policy, per CFERS policy. And this one just confirmed it. And somehow or the other, when we put these changes through, it just got cut.
Didn't use AI, did you?
We did not. We should have. So anyways, this is just to, hopefully you'll accept that change back in like it should have been and accept that so we can move forward and get this updated, posted, utilized.
Any questions, comments, concern, or motion?
French will make a motion to accept the new policy or updated policy.
Cooper second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
The employee side, do I have a motion?
I'll make the same motion, Marvell.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Caleb Newfield.
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani.
Aye.
Alfredo Molina.
Aye.
Ruth Quinto.
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
Thank you all. And we'll make sure not to cut it out again.
Okay, moving to B5 to adopt administrative updates to joint board policy 236.
Now it's the Yvonne show.
So this policy was before the board last meeting, and staff reviewed and accepted administrative updates, but rightly so, the board reviewed, rightly so, the board had a question. There was a confusing statement in the third paragraph, and so the result of that was to go ahead and just delete that sentence. But after I got back to my desk and took a look at the policy, I go, we really don't want to delete that. We really just want to clarify. So clarifying, the only change then for the policy before you is adding the word disability and the third paragraph there to say disability retirees are no longer required to report. Because those are the ones that report, the ones under age 50, fire and police, under age 55 in the ER. So long story short, that change was put in there. Thank you for suggesting it. I don't know if it was Caleb or Ruthie, but someone suggested it. Made that change. And so before you is the policy with that update. Ask you to adopt it. We'll be good to go. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve on the employee side.
I'll second, Marvell.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Caleb Newfield.
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani.
Aye.
Alfredo Molina.
Aye.
Ruth Quinto.
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Yep.
Fire and police.
French will make the same motion.
Cooper second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With my vote, it passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, moving to B6, presentation by legal counsel and action regarding 707 revision of the Brown Act.
Thank you. I'm here to present a summary of the amendments to the Brown Act by SB 707. SB 707 became effective on January 1st, 2026. Many of the requirements of the Brown Act remain the same, but are reorganized. And other requirements, though, are modified or new. So we thought it was important to explain them. As veteran board members know, the Brown Act is a statute that implements the major public policy in favor of open, transparent government. The Brown Act has many rules, many quite specific, all of which need to be followed. And failure to follow the Brown Act exposes the board to misdemeanor criminal penalties and other forms of relief. As veteran board members are aware, state law requires AB 1234 training every 2 years. An important part of AB 1234 training is training on the Brown Act. And the board's next training will be March 2027. So you'll get more thorough Brown Act training at that time. We've provided the boards with 7 memos on the Brown Act, and I prepared them in a question and answer format in the hopes that they'll be easy to follow and are more pragmatic, practical, so you can refer to them as questions arise. For example, the question that arose today in terms of what needs to be on the agenda and what can be discussed that's not on the agenda. That's actually a question on the facts for public meetings under the Brown Act. I have a question: what are the requirements on voting and making decisions during meetings? And one of the bullets is the board cannot discuss any item not appearing on agenda except, and it gives the various exceptions to the requirement that items be on the agenda, such as briefly responding to the public, that sort of thing. So if that question arises, it's in the memo. I'm not going to delve into all the details because there's too many complex rules, but I just wanted to provide a summary of some of the key requirements and highlight some of the changes. SB 707 mandates that the board provide a copy of the Brown Act to anyone appointed or elected to the board. I've provided a copy of the new Brown Act to staff, so you should have it so you can provide it to new members. As discussed in the memo titled Facts for Public Meetings under the Brown Act, board members cannot discuss, deliberate, or take action on board matters outside of board meetings. And I just wanted to provide a couple of cautions on this. One is about texting or emailing during board meetings. If you do that outside of your discussions, that could cause problems. So just be aware of that. And there's also new cautions in the Brown Act about the use of social media. So if you're using social media to discuss matters that are within the jurisdiction of the board, or you should check out those requirements. As you know, agendas must be posted, and board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda. One note is that special meetings can be called with 24 hours notice. So if you forget to include an item on an agenda for a regular meeting, you might be able to call a special meeting, call it right before the regular meeting, in order to be able to discuss it at that special meeting. Closed sessions, as you know, are for limited topics only, and discussions in closed meetings are confidential, so they shouldn't be discussed outside of closed sessions to staff, family, or others unless the board authorizes those disclosures. SB 707 makes some changes to board member participation by teleconferencing. And I wanted to hand out, I made a little handy, what I hope is a handy chart that highlights the changes. And these are categorized by topic. So it's under the traditional Brown Act, teleconferencing for just cause, teleconferencing for remote participation, if you have a disability. There's separate requirements for each. So the traditional Brown Act grounds for board member teleconferencing remain the same, but under the new provisions, a board member with a disability is able to. Yeah.
I'm sorry, on the Zoom for the board members that are not, did you have a copy?
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And this is in the packet. As well. So this is not new information that was not in the packet. So if a board member has a disability, they're able to attend remotely. And the new change is that that's counted as in-person participation. So you don't need roll call with respect to that member. But there are specific rules for attending remotely, such as announcing if anyone over 18 years old is present. There's also the COVID emergency and just cause grounds for board member teleconferencing have been combined and are now both considered just cause. So the same grounds exist as before. For example, if you've got childcare issues or an illness that's not a disability, those can be grounds for attending for cause. But note that board members teleconferencing for just cause is limited to twice a year. And in addition, the minutes must identify the board member teleconferencing for just cause and the grounds. There are new teleconferencing rules for state and local emergencies and situations like earthquakes or terrorist attacks. And there's, if applicable, refer to the memo. And in the meantime, this office will continue to act as the Brown Act cop and try and raise issues related to the Brown Act. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions?
I'm afraid to ask, yeah. You're on the agenda.
Said you're the cops and all that.
So that will conclude B6. We'll move into board initiated C1 to discuss and approve the 2026 real estate pacing plan.
Mr. Chairman, if I could share my document to make sure we're all moving along at the same page. Let me make this larger. There, is everyone seeing it? Right. So we classify the fund's real estate investments in two categories. Core real estate, which is intended to be relatively fully leased up, high quality buildings that are just earning a solid return. And then non-core real estate, where we're engaging with managers that are seeking to make changes to real estate so that they can get some capital appreciation along the way. And it's been referenced before, a couple of years back, we decided to shift from being 60% core real estate to being 60% non-core real estate. And the timing of that has been, it's been helpful and interesting because we continue to see problems with core real estate, whereas non-core, we're seeing opportunities. Because the non-core investments are going into closed-end funds that typically last for 10 years, where you make a commitment and then the manager has the ability to call that commitment at any time they wish over the next few years. And it's the manager's choice largely about when they sell assets and give the money back. We never really, we have less control than you would if it were equal funds with stocks and bonds in terms of how much money we have invested at any one point in time. So in order to get to our long-term target of 9% closed-end non-core real estate, we have to build these pacing plans. And we want to see where we are and slowly get to that 9% target. We don't want to put all the money in any one vintage year because you never know if this vintage year is going to be particularly good or particularly bad until in retrospect. We have reasons to think that this is a good time, an attractive time to be putting fresh money to work, but we could be wrong. The market might develop in a different way. So we're trying to make commitments at a regular pace and not just episodically. And this pacing plan helps us do it. And every year we look at the value of the fund, the value of your holdings, and we recalculate what we believe is the most prudent amount of money to invest. In this case, we are still well underweight our 9% target. We're at about 5.5% or so in non-core real estate. We're recommending a range of investments. I always use the word approximately because you never know when we're going to find strategies that are really appealing or not. But in this case, we're recommending that in 2026, this plan invests somewhere between 100 million and 150 million. And we actually ran two different pacing plans to show you what it looks like to just commit about 100 million a year, and to show you what it looked like if you sort of front-loaded, committed more for a few years, and what it might mean in the back end. So there's reasons to commit a little more than 100 million this year, but there's also some risks if you continue to over-commit over time, and we'll show you that. I also, as always, couldn't resist putting in some education updates about what's happening in real estate. Here's the update first. Actually, you know what? I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to show that 100 to 150 million just to show you that because it's fresh in the mind. I've just mentioned it. So if you turn to the back section, we have what we're calling a smooth pacing plan. This is an update of about the 5.5% or so that's in different types of non-core real estate. A generalized non-core, a strategy that we classify as lending, although it's a combination of loans and equity. Value add is when you have an asset and you're just on the margin making changes, and opportunistic is a little more aggressive. And so you have different types of these strategies. This is looking ahead a year. So we started with September 2025 numbers. At the time this model was built, we didn't yet have all the December statements for all of your managers. So we used September's data. And we look forward a year, and we're estimating that you're likely to, between now and then, you're likely to get more money back than you might be putting in. So here we're saying a year from now, you might only be at 4.5% or 4.6% in terms of your investments in non-core. And you're trying to get to 9%, that red line. And that red line is going up because we're modeling that the overall plan is also going to go up in value over time. This shows, and this is sort of a base case assumption, if all of our assumptions were exactly right, which they're never exactly right. This is sort of our base case for how we think the investments would appreciate and the plan would grow. If you committed 100 million a year, and then in year 4 and onward, September 2029 and onward, you did 110 million a year, we think you would slowly and steadily get up to that 9%, but you wouldn't get up there until 2033. So you'd be underweight for a long time. But sometimes slow and steady wins the race, right? I mean, this is, you'd be balanced out across vintage year contributions. What if you accelerated it and you wanted to get to that 9% faster? That's the second model here, what we're calling a front-loaded pacing plan. So here we said, what if you contributed 50% more for 4 years? You would get up there a lot faster, but then you'd have the risk of overshooting. This is on, I believe you're all following on, but it's on page 21 if someone isn't following along this document. And instead of having an even commitment over time, you might drop from 150 down not to 100, but below 175 million a year for a few years. So you're less smooth. Now, we're not recommending necessarily that you do 4 years in a row of overcommitting, but we are thinking maybe there's a middle ground between these two models, where it's possible you commit a little bit more than 100 million this year, maybe next year, we'll revisit it and we'll reconsider, but maybe not 4 years in a row. So that's our recommendation, is that we're recommending, based on the strategies that are out there that we're evaluating, a couple of which, were just reported back to the public session. Somewhere between 100 and 150 million is what we think makes sense for this year. And then 12 months from now, we'll take another look again and we'll revisit and see what's the right amount next year. But I just wanted to show you, this is the kind of scenario building that we do with your investment staff when we think about it. So sort of showing a little bit more than we normally do. The other material in this, after this presentation, is it shows how much you have. Well, it's just a whole series of projections of the net asset value, the uncalled capital. Over time, in order to get to that 9% level in the out years, where you are at 9% invested, you need to have more committed, because it's going to take a few years for some of that capital to be called. And in the meantime, some of these are going to be redeemed back to you. The dark blue right here is what you have currently invested. And you can see we're modeling everything you have currently invested. We're expecting you to get all of that back, plus some appreciation, we hope and expect, over the next 6-7 years or so. And then there's a chart that shows what would happen in terms of cash flows. Are you likely to be receiving more money than you're investing? That's where we think we are right now, because we have some older non-core real estate that we think are likely to be giving up capital a little bit faster, perhaps, than what's called. But as you commit money, there will be a period where you're putting more money in. This is natural because you're trying to get 5.5% up to 9%. So you got to invest in it. And then over time, when you are up at that 9% level, we expect this will be in a net basis of giving money back that you can reinvest elsewhere in your portfolio. If you front load it, instead of looking like this sort of balanced smile over the next 10 years, the cash flows would be accelerated, go a little bit deeper up front, but then it would be quicker to where it's giving cash back that you invest elsewhere. Any questions about either of these pacing plans before I go back to sort of talk a little bit about real estate market in general? So heading back to the update. Current conditions, we've color-coded it. There's a lot of green things. There's some neutral yellows, and there's some reds. There are some significant issues. Reds in current conditions, this is a little bit of financial language. Appraisal cap rates below transaction cap rates. What that means, when we look at private real estate, particularly sort of the core institutional funds that are out there, a lot of them are holding the assets that their investors have invested in, are holding it at a value higher than what's actually trading in the market, comparable buildings. So we expect over time, some of those values have to come back into place. Second, office in particular is really challenged. But the opportunities is that inflation seems to have continued to be slowing down. Economic growth is continuing to be strong. Liquidity is improving. Transactions are improving. Fundamentals are solid. And let me show you some of that. And it's leading us to be a little bullish about about making new investments, particularly in closed-end funds where we don't have to worry about those higher than we'd like to see them valuations. NABC has different target real estate strategies depending on the goals that you're trying to accomplish, and your portfolio is well diversified. It's invested in a number of these different areas. If you were strictly looking for the income, in many cases that's what core real estate would be for. But core, because of the troubles it's continuing to have, we see better opportunities to get income from real estate debt or from net lease strategies. And real estate debt in particular, we think has better downside protection. You're getting high returns, some of these from loans to projects that are under construction. And we think that's appealing. A diversified opportunistic is the higher growth area, a balanced approach. Here's real estate secondaries, and then value add. And then tactically look for sector specific experts and look for diversification by investing globally. This is something that your portfolio is doing a lot of these things. Signs that the capital markets are normalizing in real estate. There's a chart here that shows the net percent of banks reporting stronger demand. And back in 2023, 2024, almost no banks were reporting stronger real estate demand or demand for real estate loans. It's recovering. As many banks are saying, there's more demand for loans as aren't. Likewise, the banks, in the face of all of these troubles, greatly tightened their underwriting standards. It became much harder to get loans. That's recovered as well. It's sort of a neutral basis. Not as many banks are tightening as not tightening. So it's recovered to an area where it's easier to get loans. There's a lot of loan maturities out there. And some of them are based on valuations that don't exist anymore. So as those things get refinanced, here's opportunities for potentially secondary fund managers coming in to take over, because some of these investments need to be recapitalized with a different investor. But transaction volume, which became very low in 2023, is recovered or starting to recover quite a bit. When you look at the four major sort of food groups for real estate, apartments, industrial, which is usually like warehouses, offices, and retail, office is still struggling. Vacancy rates are still climbing. And year-over-year appreciation is still negative. But with the other three areas, year-over-year appreciation is pretty much flat. So they've recovered. And even office is recovering. The year-over-year change isn't as bad as it was a year or two ago. Still negative, but not as negative. And vacancy rates are stable for everything except office. There's other alternative property sectors where the supply demand is much more attractive. Senior housing, where the estimated demand for senior housing is greatly outstripping the expected supply growth. Likewise, self-storage. We expect that new supply is likely to be much lower. And this is just sort of there's a growing demand for self-storage. We all own too much stuff. We have to keep shots. Data centers, which we classify as real estate, although it can arguably be considered sort of an infrastructure. Huge demand. And maybe there's some supply demand issues coming, particularly with the great demand for power that these things also have. But there's opportunities there if you pick the right place and you get the power in place and everything else. Core real estate, due to those valuation issues that I talked about, still have some issues. This line shows the total net return of core real estate open-ended institutional funds. There's a range, depending. Some funds do much better than others in any one year. This horizontal line is the average. And year to date, the first 3 quarters, first 9 months of 2025, the average core real estate fund had a positive net return. But some of them were down almost 10%, whereas others were higher. So there's this struggling tail. And these light blue lines show how much money is formally in exit queues and are waiting to get some of their money back. It's still very high. There's a lot of investors that are still trying to pull money from a lot of these core funds, which is makes it harder to manage those core funds. But secondaries are really attractive because there's this pressure. If you were a limited partner in a private real estate strategy and you couldn't wait for it to mature because you really needed your money now, there
I
is a
was there
market.
with that. Anyway, okay. Well, we're
There-
not.
there
We're
is-
going out. Yeah. Yeah, because there's 4 of us here and we don't ever really get to.
You need to mute, sorry.
There is a price you can exit at. Someone would be willing to buy it from you, but you might on average expect to get only 70% of the face. Secondary managers might come in and pay 70%, and then they have an opportunity to potentially earn more because if you're patient. And a lot of this is all about if you're in a position which these funds, these plans are, if you can be patient, if you have the liquidity, being able to invest where others are struggling, buying when others are selling, that's the opportunity that we see for this fund. And there's growth of GP-led, general partner-led secondaries. This is where the fund, the investor themselves of the fund is selling. Maybe because the fund has matured, maybe because they just, their investors are clamoring for the money and they're not done with these transactions. So they're selling not to the public market, but to another investor, to a secondary fund. That's becoming a growing part of the business. There's also global opportunities for, this chart just shows that sometimes foreign real estate zigs when the
Very
US
full.
sags, and there's opportunities there. And then there's a lot of data here about Europe.
Can you mute her?
So that's the update. We see opportunities. There's been a few years of struggle for real estate. But we think that this is potentially a very good time to put fresh money to work. And we've been working really hard, both at EPC's research team and then your investment staff working with NEPC to evaluate a lot of these managers and try to find the best ones we possibly can. It's fun. Any questions? I guess we would leave it with, this is our recommendation, that the systems aim to make new commitments in real estate over this year, somewhere in the range of 100 to 150 million, depending on where we see opportunities.
What's our current exposure to senior living right now?
You have it in a number of different areas. The one that immediately comes to mind, because it's more than a third of their portfolio, is the Kayne Anderson Fund 6.
Yeah.
And then the Fund 7, that'll be a big part of their strategy as well, if that does become an investment for this fund.
Yeah, you see a lot of upside, I think, in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a theme that has been talked about for a while. There were some disappointments along the way because truly the greatest demand for dedicated senior housing isn't when someone first retires. It's maybe not even when they hit 70. It's a lot of times when they hit 80 or 85 or something along those lines. And then they really need the support. But we have a lot of boomers that are hitting that level. And there isn't enough of those facilities out there. So finding operators that can add that additional capacity and then operate it in a good manner.
Yeah.
Because that's really important too, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of demand.
Yeah, I can answer that, but we might move on to a new section. I'll
Go ahead, Mr. Perry.
pulling it up right now.
Great that you've got the systems that can pull that up immediately.
I guess the other question is, are we exposed to any senior living facilities outside of the United States? Because I know like in other countries like Japan right now, there's a massive.
Yes, Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
It's, as Dan already said, it's aging populations in a lot of developed countries, so
yeah,
man should keep going.
Should be, yeah.
Aging populations paired with smaller families, so it's harder
to take care of the older population. Yeah.
And fewer kids, there's fewer chances for someone to. Yeah.
Any other questions from the employee side? I'm good.
You mentioned you had the system to pull things up instantaneously. Is that part of the AI stuff that we?
Well, no,
No, not yet. Okay.
different system.
I see.
Pretty impressive, you know.
Most instantaneous.
About 5%.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion required to accept the patient. Right? Or police.
Who made that motion?
French will second. All in favor? So you can say thank you. Route, chat, and choice. Last one.
On the employee side,
Somewhere between it.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Caleb Newfeld.
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani.
Aye.
Alfredo Molina.
Aye.
Lisa Quinto.
Aye.
Marvell French.
Aye.
That passes, you know.
Oh, no, yeah. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Sorry. So, I just looked at, Australia is the only country we have senior living exposure.
Okay.
So everybody else is domestic.
Do you know what's the reason why Australia versus, is that just because of the way the fund's set up?
That's in the other Brookfield fund.
Got it.
So globally diversified, it's an opportunistic fund. They invest in everything. So I'm assuming they saw some demographic trends, no different than anywhere else. Those are primarily in Melbourne and Sydney, in the big cities.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move to C2 board initiated items. See investment performance analysis for quarter ending December 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of the overall macro update about quarter was already included in Chad's presentation. Along with the market environment. He had some top line performance numbers, but I think the additional information that is most of use that's in this report shows how these individual strategies compare to their peer groups, how this plan has performed compared to other similar large public pension plans, and looking at not just at the return, but also at the plan. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on my comments here. So this executive summary at the top shows the net performance of the combined funds, market value of more than $4.5 billion. The final quarter of last year gained 2.2%, and the 12 months through the year gained 13.8%. The number in parentheses afterwards shows a percentile ranking versus other public pension plans in our database that are more than $1 billion in net value. This population shows that we're comparing you against, depending on the time frame, 40 or 50 other large public pension plans. And percentile rank over the last year of 36th percentile means that almost 2/3 of the other plans did not gain as much as your 13.8%. So you outperformed the median. And you outperformed the median over every single time frame where we have a significant number of comparables going all the way out to 25 years. We only have 25 to compare against, but you did better than almost 80% of them. So great performance. Also, over most of these time periods, outperforming your policy index and outperforming what would have been just a simple 60-40 global stock and bond portfolio. Now note that if you had invested in a 60-40 global stock and bond portfolio, you would have gained more in value over the last 1 to 3 years because those global stocks have been incredibly strong. But the volatility in such a portfolio is huge. And so you have a much more stable set of returns. And over a longer time frame, you greatly outperformed that 60-40 index, as well as the median of other public pension plans. An example of that volatility and performance are these two tables, one looking over 5 years and one looking over 7 years. So for the past 5 years, the total fund gained 7.9% annualized versus your index of 7.7, and a 60-40 benchmark would have only done 5.5, putting it underperforming 98% of your peer group, whereas you're outperforming all but 11% over here in the 11th percentile. Standard deviation, this plan was less volatile than 2/3 of your peer group, whereas that 60-40, there are a few plans that are more volatile than that, but most are smoother. So likewise, a risk-adjusted return, you're showing quite well versus peer group, versus 60-40 versus policy benchmark. Similar story for 7 years. Very strong returns, more than 10% annualized. Median standard deviation, almost 50th percentile, leading to better than average risk-adjusted returns. Those are just two different metrics to do risk-adjusted returns. So a great story. Your asset allocation is in line with your policy ranges. This chart shows that quarter by quarter, there are quarters where you've had negative returns or when your excess return has been negative, but there's been a lot of positive ones. This attribution analysis looks at your 3-year performance and said, net, you outperformed your policy benchmark. So where was the outperformance and where was the versus the asset class benchmarks that each of your managers at the asset class is being evaluated against. Over the past 3 years, equity, public and private, you've underperformed your benchmarks, but you've outperformed in fixed income and real assets, and therefore as a whole outperformed. And we'll go through those asset classes in a little bit more detail later. Actually, right here. So here's the performance detail. The top line matching we just went through on the executive summary versus the policy index versus 60-40 versus a median of other public pension plans. Total equity has driven a lot of that performance because the equity market's been so strong over the last few years. 20% over the past year, 18% per year over the past 3 years. Double digits on average over the past 10 years. So this has been really the engine of the portfolio. Domestic equity, until recently, was one of the best performing markets on the planet. Recently, the non-US have started to do better, and we see some cyclicality to that. That's why we're invested in non-US as well as US. Your portfolio, which is fully indexed in domestic equity in the Russell 3000, so performed just as well as the Russell 3000, just as you'd expect, and giving you very strong returns. International equity, where it's a combination of indexed and active over each of these time frames, you've been underperforming your benchmark. We've talked about the underperformance and the sources for it with Baillie Gifford. Some of your other active managers, Principal, it's been more mixed, and they've outperformed since inception. I should note Baillie Gifford also, despite the recent underperformance, also has outperformed since inception. So both of your active managers have added value over time, but Baillie Gifford has had some recent issues. They have a style where they invest very concentrated portfolio in high growth stocks. that adds some volatility. So we expect periods of underperformance and outperformance, but it's been tough. Private equity, we're comparing you first against public stocks plus 1.5%, because we expect private to do better than public, but they've lagged recently because public has done so well. We're also added a secondary benchmark so you can see how you compare it to other private equity. This is a benchmark of all the private equity strategies this benchmark provider is producing. There you see the performance is more comparable. Slight underperformance over the past year, but outperformance over the past 3 and 5 years, and since inception, slight outperformance. And here's all the individual private entities you're invested in. On the fixed income side, pretty consistent outperformance versus your fixed income index. For public fixed income, your 2 active managers have both steadily outperformed, Dodge & Cox and PGIM. Net of fees, they're both doing better than the Bloomberg US aggregate they're seeking to outperform. So that's great. Private credit outperforming versus in most time frames versus the private credit index, which is a public market proxy plus premium. And then we've added, you can see how you're doing against other private credit strategies. Your portfolio has also outperformed versus other private credit. So the manager selection has been very strong. Real assets, which is a combination of real estate, infrastructure, private real assets. These are your closed-end strategies, which is why we did the pacing plan. They've added value versus this Odyssey benchmark. Think of this as core private real estate, because that's what it is. And then this benchmark is other non-core closed-end strategies. And in both cases, over most time frames, your private real estate investments have outperformed both of these benchmarks. So adding a lot of value. And in general, positive returns, again, which we hadn't seen with some issues in some periods recently. 4% for last year. Longer term, we'd expect to get more than 4% out of this asset class. But again, this was a tough year. But longer term, you are getting more, high single digits out of this asset class. And with the diversification benefits that real estate gives you as well. The core real estate, positive 4.9% over last year, outperforming the Odyssey. Negative annualized over 3 years, but again, outperforming the peer group. Your selection of managers has been better than the typical for private core real estate. And then infrastructure, we're getting some periods recently with double-digit returns. These are often inflation-sensitive investments, and we've had some inflation. Here, there's a CPI plus 4%. I'd like to add a secondary private market benchmark so you can compare on that. We'll work on that. But this benchmark of inflation plus 4%, you've outperformed it recently. Longer term, a little tougher, but inflation plus 4% is uninvestable. You've been getting more than 7% annualized, very consistent return, and these are really defensive investments. So we think this portfolio is also performing the way we'd like to see it. The rest is cash and this new investment in the opportunistic bucket, which has shown a very sharp markup at the very start, but it's early days yet, so we won't hold them to that rate of return always. Any questions about this performance report?
And now, are we motion to yep. Fire and police motion to accept.
Cooper make that motion.
French will second it. All in favor to accept the investment? No,
Aye.
Unanimous.
Do I have a motion on the employee side?
Make the motion.
Second. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Caleb Muto,
Aye.
Tyler Kamalani,
Aye.
Alfred
Aye.
Joseph Quinto, Marvell French,
Aye. This is Marvell, and I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to leave the meeting at 4, just to let everybody know.
With that, the motion passes. No response from Ruthie on that. Thank you.
Very much. Okay, and then we'll move down to board initiated item C, review and discuss agreement with Saltzman and Johnson, which expires October 31st, 2026.
So last month during the annual performance review of legal counsel, staff was directed to agendize the board review and discussion of the expiring agreement with Saltzman and Johnson. Since it is currently for 5 years and expires October 31st, we request direction from the board to either negotiate an extension or to solicit bids via RFI, RFP. Please and thank you.
The evaluation of performance evals came back really well, right?
Well, I mean, except for Russ. So yes, basically you guys think that he walks on water, which is, pretty cool.
What action do we need to take today on this?
Just direction. Do you want us to negotiate an extension of the contract, or do you want us to solicit bids or ignore it until October 30th? Or
I don't like that.
I don't like that one either.
So to weigh in as the chair, this is important and hard for me because there's the emotional side that wants to say Russ has been our attorney for how many years, Russ?
35.
35 years. So it's difficult for me to not to say, let's give Russ and Saltzman Johnson another 5 years because that's like the easy. But the tough part is that I don't feel that Russ, that you're going to be here for 5 years. So, and that's kind of the succession plan I have on Florida.
I intend to be, but you're right. Who can predict the future?
Right. So, my thought is it's a kind of a fiduciary responsibility to at this point to at least see what other legal options there are. And RFP. So I'm suggesting an RFP.
I would agree with that logic. I think you guys, a lot of experience, been here for 35 years. I think we appreciate what you guys do, but just from a procurement best practice standpoint, I think it would make sense to do an RFP and just cover our bases on that.
I agree. Has there been an RFP or request or promotion in the last 5 years or 10 years?
No, not that I can remember.
It's again, no slight, I appreciate Laura stepping in should there be an absence, but I intend for you to be here for 5 years too. But I think it's just appropriate for us on the fiduciary side to review different legal options.
So I believe I have my direction to pursue an RFP. I'll bring back a draft RFP next meeting.
Okay.
Russ, will you help me write that?
Sure. I have to have somebody who has 35 years experience at the same level plan.
Okay, so moving to C4, closed session conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation.
No updates, Mr. Chairman.
So don't go anywhere.
They're so close.
No need for closed session.
No, sir.
Okay, then we'll move to D1, retirement administrator's report.
Did notice when you drove in, there is following our solar. That's the biggest change recently. We're still trying to work things through with the roofing company and the HVAC. Both blame each other for continual roofing leaks. Other than that, the duties have already been covered. Seafers has been removed from Granicus access. They removed us with no notice. Granicus, if you're not familiar, is the system that we use to post agenda items for city council. There are multiple things through the year where we're required to report to city council. COF says that we are now, City of Fresno says that we're now an outside entity. So we now have to ask the city manager's office to add anything needed to the council agenda.
That was when?
Last week.
You know what prompted that change?
We were uninformed of it until we tried to add something.
Outside entity, that was it? That was all.
We are now an outside entity according to the city president.
It's an area. Right, I guess.
Sorry, but that was the brief version of my report. Are there any questions on anything else? We were puzzled by it as well, quite honestly.
Yeah. Was that for IST's direction or
city managers?
Rob, can you just real briefly an update, just to refresh my memory on your staffing? What current vacancies you have?
There are 3 current newly approved positions that were adopted by Salary Reso July 1st. And we've gotten no traction at all from personnel in getting those filled. No response, actually. Or sorry, no, we have had responses. They're filled. Pending a salary review or a salary.
What are those positions?
Deputy Chief Investment Officer and new benefits.
We hire them first.
Okay, so senior benefits. Oh, no, that was the empty position. Not the new one. Okay, so and then one in finance.
And when was the last communication that we had with
3 weeks ago?
A week ago,
About a week ago.
you're trying to get the positions filled right now?
We're trying to get them, city council authorized them and personnel has not finalized, especially the deputy CIO position. As we've mentioned for multiple times, we're drowning in paperwork. We're drowning in monitoring. One of the big reasons that we need to get this position going. And city has not done so. Even though authorized by city council.
Have they given any reason as to what the holdup is?
They're pending salary and compensation study.
That's who are we communicating with in person?
Emily. Her last name is Shaughnessy or Sean.
I would just a suggestion, maybe. Sorry.
No, you probably was.
I was going to say maybe elevated, maybe elevated to the director, to Sumit. It's been a long time, and it sounds like
I've never had an email returned from Sumit.
Well, I think that's at least try, and then
try again,
and then maybe next meeting if you haven't got anything, then maybe we can look at some additional direction.
I'd say a phone call, just probably be the quickest, best way to reach them.
I'll leave another voicemail or try to reach him.
Thank you, Rob.
No, thank you. Are there any other questions on the administration?
Comments, questions, concerns for Aaron this year? Very much. Moving to D2, report by legal counsel of pending legal actions and updates.
Continue to be super busy. But there've been an unfortunate upswell in disabilities, so that's kept us quite occupied. Which today was an example, but many other, really good officers that are firefighters and non-sworn spend lots of time with the city who are filing. So that's taking a lot of time. And appropriately so. We're otherwise just busy as blazes. Now we'll serve our role on picking Rob's successor. But that's further down the agenda today.
Anything? Okay, that concludes D2, and we'll move to D3, discussion and action regarding draft ordinances pending before the city.
Thing to report.
Well, I think we really, this meeting, we have to get this off the dime.
Right.
I mean, this is totally unacceptable. Some of them, the drop neutrality ones are supposedly in the city's interest, and if the city and the last we heard was they're being conferred, but that was a long time ago. I'm frankly mystified. I don't know what we can do. Perhaps, the The two chairs met with the city manager within the last 4 months on other issues, but also on this issue. One of them is a tax qualification ordinance, relatively simple, no cost implications with respect to required minimum distribution. But if we don't get it enacted, we're out of compliance with the Internal Revenue Code. That just boggles my mind. That this is the state of affairs. I wonder if you have more ideas. You know, we need some new ideas.
I'm fresh out. I tried my arms.
Well, whether we're, you know,
What's the legal deadline to get that implemented? Is there a legal deadline again to get those implemented? There is.
well, no, many of them, they're not.
Okay.
They're wise, there's no arguments against them. And some of them are efforts to assist in maintaining cost neutrality by providing
Tax qualification.
the tax qualification, I think, is 2028. But do we really want to wait this long? This is not really a prudent way to run a railroad or an airline or any other mode of transportation you want to fill in the blank. Or we could ask that the manager or representative from the manager's office come to a board meeting. Haven't tried that. They, of course, can refuse, but we really have to try something different.
That's a good idea. Because what other idea do we have?
Could you add an agenda item on the council side?
Do you remember the difference we had experience with that recently? I don't know if you want to go there, be my guest, but and I don't know if going to the council is the appropriate stage at this point. I think it's in the city manager's office. I could be mistaken about that. Perhaps there is meet and confer, though the meet and confer process seems to, if it is in meet and confer, it's ground to a halt with respect to these ordinances, many of which do not specifically address the terms and conditions of employment, but indirectly everything concerns that.
Wondering if it would make sense to connect with Sumit on that personnel. I don't know if you'd be able to, I know you're hitting other stuff, but maybe scheduling meetings to go over.
I'm curious what,
if there's any impacts to the personnel staff, right? that's a unique avenue. I don't know if that would work, but I know PSD does review all like administrative amendments, regulations, et cetera, right? So that's just a
How long has this been on the agenda? Has this been ongoing for?
Well, we had it relatively recently because of the problems, but the ordinances were, and staff provided a report on this in the past. The ordinances were submitted by the council several years ago, whether it's 3, whether it's 4.
Years ago? Years. How tedious. If we had collaboration, is this a tedious project? I mean, how quickly could this get done if there was collaboration?
I believe 30 days effectiveness. Council just needs to adopt it and move. The proposed language was redlined to them, reasons in a report. We can resubmit everything. But yeah, it's been multiple years with no traction. But as Russ said, the only one that we're required to do is the tax compliance of required minimum distributions. And I believe that's by the end of 27, so January of 28.
And to get this across the finish line, we need a vote from the council to do this?
Yeah, the Fresno Municipal Code needs to be amended. So the usual process.
Have we ever tried to reach out to the mayor's office?
Mm-hmm.
How many times?
Dozens.
This mayor?
Yeah, and I showed up with Ruthie in person too to discuss it with the city manager, and it got put on a list of things to do.
And then you've talked to the city council members.
Yeah, and then I presented my 3 minutes to the city council to encourage a more amicable and collaborative relationship, and I haven't heard back either.
It's been silenced. They've never said why they're not trying to collaborate on this. They're just radio silence.
Yes, sir.
don't really have any ideas at this point.
I don't know either, other than wait to hear from the IRS that we lost our tax. I don't know. I pray for a miracle.
Well, assuming fiscal impact if we don't implement by 2020, January of 2020.
Could have penalties assessed by the IRS, but it's worst possible case would be losing tax qualified status, which for something as minor as that, it seems doubtful.
Yeah.
But it's much better to not get in front of the IRS in the first place.
Right.
Would person, or I guess would the city employee be impacted by that?
Yes.
It would be, right?
If we lose tax compliance, that means we shut the fund down and we hand everything back and we distribute all the assets.
Everything
Again, that's-
becomes taxable.
Yeah.
That's it.
Contributions.
Right, yeah, your content, everything, earnings are all becoming taxable.
What's our deadline on this?
The tax compliance, I believe, is through 2027. So but we've had this in front of them for several years already.
Let me, send me what you sent previously and I'll talk to the city controller.
Okay.
No idea. New idea? No idea.
Take my one. So by the way, have we made these? Yeah, but that is an impact the police side and they can direct with payroll or departments of finance. That would be the area that I want to address now.
You've got the last one.
Are these conversations needed to be initiated by, these conversations needed to be initiated by staff, or is that something that anybody on this side can do?
Staff has been unable to produce any results, so gratefully accept any and all help.
Would it be inappropriate for anyone on the board to reach out?
I think the board should decide that rather than have some uncoordinated approaches.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect time to discuss it.
Rob's tried, I've tried, you're gonna try. You know, maybe let him try, and then if by next meeting we don't, then we go whatever angle you're thinking.
Sure. That works. Cool. Yeah, send me that over and I'll connect with.
Is Caleb, are you going to be doing it on the tax thing? Is that's the priority right now? Because
That's the law that's required.
But there's other ordinances that need to be addressed as well.
The drop cost neutrality just increases the cost to the city if they don't address these. So that's going to flash taxpayers.
He said, put it off.
But we've done our due diligence on that, right? Am I right? I mean,
Yes, sir.
We made them aware of it. They chose to sit on it. But the one that's most concerning to us right now, because there's a deadline, is the tax implication.
The others are, if they get around to it, we would prefer they do, the tax qualification is required.
Understood.
Cool. On it.
All right. I'm good with moving forward to, that concludes D for you, correct? Okay, so then we'll move down to no information only items. Are there any proposed agenda items for the next board meeting? Hearing none. Any unscheduled oral communications?
So going back to your, the proposed agenda item, we're talking about the, and where Bell brought that up earlier for the employees.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for framework, Lisa.
Already noted?
Okay, perfect. Marvell, did you catch that?
She might be calling.
Oh, that's what we have for now, so maybe you can update her, you can let someone know. That we're gonna have that soon on the next agenda item. Any other unscheduled oral communications? Hearing none. Any member of the public wishing to comment? Thank you, chat. No one online speaking out. Employee personnel issues.
So at this point, the board will go into closed session with respect to item I-1 on the agenda. Okay, we're in open session?
Yes.
And I guess it's somewhat, we do need, so the report out of closed session is that each board in recognition of its fiduciary obligations in the context of its consideration of Rob's past performance is to approve an increase in his salary to the highest provided in the salary range, which is $2,279,204, effective January 1 of this year. Second, to make contributions in the total amount of $16,250 to his deferred compensation account, which represents a proration of the contribution that could have been made for the year 2026. In light of the period of time Rob will remain with us. Both boards approved that the same motion. On the Fire and Police Board, all members present voted in favor of the motion. On the Fire and Police Board, the 4 members now attending the meeting approved the motion, with French having had to already leave the meeting before this matter was considered. That constitutes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney, I believe you said Police and Fire Board twice. Did I mishear that?
I apologize.
I think you meant employees, yes.
I absolutely meant employees. Thank you very much for that correction. So the vote by the Employees Board was to approve the same motion. We're in favor, and 1 board member absent, board member French. Constitutes the report out of closed session.
I think Rob missed most of that.
Yeah, all right, so Zoom pop back on and got over here as quick as I could.
Well, we can go into in detail later. We're using board members, Rob. So we need to begin the discussion on successor.
Okay, well,
No, Rob, this is, we want you here.
Okay. Can I
You're part of the process.
I think Rob's still confused about the last.
Well, we will mention it to Rob after the meeting's over.
Can I do it now?
Feel free, because we're running out of time. But feel free.
This is rather important to me, Russ.
And do it.
Okay. Last month when we offered you the most we can give you, I called it the take it or leave it feeling. In discussion, it's more clear to me now that that's something that I think you offered, like you understand that if you don't take it, that you don't expect a raise kind of mentality. I don't think there's a lot of
That was explicit.
Yeah.
To me, yes.
Right. So that's why I said there's some, who remembers what doesn't matter. What I didn't like was that feeling of after all the years of service that you've provided us and your performance, that you were leaving with less than what we could give you. And in our discussion and our offer, and it's unanimous, I think, on both boards, is that although you turned our offer down and tendered your said for sure you're leaving, it was important for me to know that you were given another opportunity to accept. You can reject again if you want to leave money on the table, because I think that's what you're like. It was expressed to you that take it or leave it kind of feeling. Well, in summary, the most we can come up with, what were the numbers that without involving outside agencies outside of us that can approve like education and stuff like that? What were the
point is, Rob, the board has decided to increase, both boards have decided to increase your compensation with no strings attached. First, that to increase you to the maximum of the salary range effective January 1, 2026. And in addition, to make a contribution to your 457 plan account in the amount of $16,250, which is the understanding of both boards to be a rough and ready proration of the amount that could have been contributed to your 457 account over an entire year.
So the offers, we're giving you an offer, and I'd like to throw it out there, even though there's.
It's not really an offer.
I'm sorry.
You've decided to do that.
Correct. We decided to give you more than you projected. I don't know how to say it.
I don't know what an offer you're with anything.
Your major time here.
This is what the boards have decided, and their appreciation and recognition.
Thank you very much.
I wish we could give you more, but we can't.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing.
That's what I wanted to hear, that you appreciated what we were doing, because I appreciate what you've done for the last 20 years on the retirement administrative side, the investment team, everybody like gives you high marks and stuff. You know, in hopes that you follow your retirement. I know there's a 1% chance to nothing, but I didn't want you leaving with a take it or leave it feeling. I wanted you to know that both boards appreciated and offered you the best we could, as much as we could. Thank you very much.
Well, you earned it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Russ for the time. Succession planning.
It's really, well, I'm just going to remind you what's in the succession plan policy. So it was attached to the agenda materials. You also had it a couple of months ago. And most relevant to the process of selecting a successor to Rob is that you have the option before you to set up an ad hoc committee to oversee the process and to get the process going. The first step in the process is to select a consultant. And given that it's already February, and I would at least recommend, but it's totally up to the boards, that you delegate to what the ad hoc committee the actual selection of a consultant and authorizing them to execute a contract with the consultant and to have the consultant appear before the boards at their next meeting in March 11th. Now, the heavy lifting, hopefully, you might also want to consider, if there's time, there may not be, to have the ad hoc committee begin the process of coming up with the terms and conditions that you want in the publication piece. Very important piece at this stage. I went through this with another retirement administrator in 2023. That's one firm. I think you and I don't know if board member Quinto is still on the call. She may have some suggestions as to the city uses. The firm in 2023 had significant experience with placing retirement administrators, but I'm sure there are other firms equally good that I'm not aware of that have significant experience, not in selecting, a director of public works, but in selecting the kind of position, in providing the support to obtain candidates for the position we want filled.
Russ, what is the name of the firm that you're referring to?
Alliance. Or
Thank you.
Alliance.
I was going to say, I didn't know it was pronounced that way, but
No, neither did I. I don't know why I'm different. I apologize for that. It's but I don't know I don't think the boards need to decide the identity of the consulting firm, though they could. That would push things forward a bit. But perhaps an ad hoc committee, and you want to decide the composition of that committee.
Would it be appropriate that the chairs and vice chairs of both boards start the ad hoc committee and do a search and find out and report back to the board, which we find is most appropriate?
I would hope you could speed that up, but again, it's up to you. I don't think you want to wait until March to decide what firm you're going to pick. And then they come back in April with like the brochure, and then they don't do the advertising until May and June, and interviews at best in July and August. Now that's all possible, and if that's the way you want it, that can be done. Your succession policy also contemplates the appointment by you of an interim retirement administrator. It can be within someone already on staff, or you can even pick an outside one, though how you do that is questionable, is unclear to me, but it is provided for in your policy. So you can do it as you feel most appropriate. You shouldn't feel that you're being rushed, even though we do have a time.
I think that's probably how I feel most about it, is I don't want to feel rushed, and if it doesn't take enough time, that we've got very competent staff that can run it without Rob. I don't want to say that out loud. But
You very much do.
we for at least for temporary, Yvonne's, Kathleen, so I think that we take our time and get it done right and choose our recruitment people appropriately. And like
the ad hoc committee can discuss the pros and cons and come forward with 1 or 2 recommendations. And then I think, how long it's going to take, it may take 6 months, 7 months, 9 months. I mean, yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have a hard time getting people to apply for the job for as low as we're offering. But, considering the weight of it, how much the responsibility is. But so I'm prepared to just get the right recruitment people to get the biggest number of fish in the pool.
So what are you proposing to have, the
What-
chairs and the
yeah,
vice chairs do what now?
To form an ad hoc committee reporting back to the board next meeting as to our recommendation as to which recruiting firm we should proceed with the retirement administrator vacancy.
What do you guys think?
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that, but I'm also wondering if we have people in-house that, like we just suggested. Do they have to go to that firm in order to get?
They have to apply.
Want the job?
They would have to apply. It'd be open.
All right.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if Yvonne wanted the job, she would have to apply for the job.
Right. Then that's why I want to make sure that's open and then you don't have to come to that headhunter.
Well, you go through the headhunter only in the sense that probably the application, the headhunter is going to receive all the applications.
Oh, okay.
And evaluate them and provide their input and guidance to you for whatever that's worth.
Right, do you
But
know
the
anybody
committee
or
would
any
get all the applications.
headhunters?
They call them every other month.
Pension systems.
I'm sorry,
In regards to like pension systems, do you know of any, yes, high caliber?
Do you have any suggestions?
I'll forward you guys a list.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
There's a half a dozen that specialize in international investment recruiting. CBIZ, comes top of mind. Beautiful. But let me just get you a refresh list.
Yeah.
This would be for your position, Rob, retirement.
Vice chairs that go on. Review his recommendations and come back with a recommendation that works.
The next meeting, March
11.
And I'm gonna put it on the calendar that you're potentially not gonna be there. Chris. Probably not. Yeah. So the motion or?
I don't know, do we need a motion?
I don't think we need a motion to start an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
But it's gonna be Jonathan, Ruthie, Caleb, and Chris.
Ruthie, you got volunteered. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In the event that Chris will not be able to attend, either of you or want to recommend Lynn or you?
Yeah, I'll recommend Lynn.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't want to do it? Serious?
I don't mind doing it.
Why don't you do it? I recommend Larry.
Is this?
Somebody who's.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
He's out of state sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to get going on this?
I'm sorry, so it's instead of Chris?
Yes.
Chris said instead. Okay, so it's Larry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lynn can pick me later.
Okay. That include the secession component of the agenda?
Up to you, not to me, but.
Oh,
I think I think on the employee side, it's
everything else. Yeah. Okay. Well, then. That's it. So with that, we're adjourned. Yes.